Arthur Ettinger, a member of the Fighting 69th Company K, left this account of his company's first experience in combat. Dick Hennessy, formerly a dear friend from Headquarters Company, now a sergeant major at Division Headquarters, told me we were going to move out the next day. I passed the word around, and there was very little sleep that night. The men were so excited about going into the trenches. To tell the truth, I think the French knew about our move before we did, because as we marched out early in the morning, quite a few elderly French men and women were up and about the main street of Luneville. With many an adieu and bonne chance, they thrust garlands of flowers upon us, giving us their blessing. The regiment made a leisurely 10 kilometers that day in an easterly direction and arrived at a cluster of barracks in a wooded area, which the men immediately dubbed Camp New York. We sacked there overnight and the following morning headed for the trenches. We were marching up this road in two files, one on either side, our hearts beating in anticipation. Suddenly, German artillery opened up. They had the range almost perfect. Fortunately, however, their shells fell harmlessly into the woods several hundred yards to our left. The sound and sight of those first shells exploding was awesome, terrifying, very humbling. Following our training instructions, we fell face down on the road and crawled into ditches on either side. We could hear shrapnel winging through the trees and the limbs cracking, but none of us was hurt. That was our baptism by fire, and we were all mighty frightened. During a pause in the shelling, it became deathly still. Then a voice piped up. "If those damn Krauts aren't careful, someone is going to get hurt around here." It was Frankie McGuire, our comic from Brooklyn. Everyone laughed, and that broke the tension. From then on, we were pretty much able to take shell fire in our stride. Moving on through the forest of Peroy, we entered the trenches in front of Rouge Bouquet sector on George Washington's birthday, 1918, relieving a French regiment that had previously held that position. The Pioneer Platoon was assigned its own dugout, which accommodated 40 to 50 men 40 feet underground. At the trench level entrance, the dugout woolen blankets were kept saturated with water to protect against gas. Going down the stairs, we entered a large room with bunks 3 tiers high around the sides. There was another set of blankets at the second entrance, which also had to be kept damp. It was an eerie feeling down in that dugout. No one knew what was going to happen next. The next morning, out in no man's land, there was a big sign on white cloth reading, "Welcome, Rainbow Division." We hadn't surprised the Germans. This area of the front was known as a quiet sector for both sides, German and French. This was an area where men were sent to rest and recover from previous action. However, the Rainbow Division had no intention of using it as a peaceful exercise area. Even when we entered the trenches, our 149th Illinois Field Artillery set up a terrific barrage on the German lines. Of course, they returned the fire, and it was pretty hairy during our next month in those trenches. Artillery did most damage. From the very beginning, our platoon was busy repairing sections of the parapet and trenches destroyed by German artillery fire. We also had to repair our barbed wire, which was continually blasted by German shells. This we would do in the dead of night. We were only a few thousand yards from the German lines and had to work very quietly so as not to reveal ourselves. Every once in a while, the Germans would send up star shells to eliminate no man's land, but you could hear them going up before they exploded, so we dropped to the ground and remained motionless while the area was illuminated. It was exciting work, to say the least. Once we had to repair wire that had been blasted by our own artillery. After several hours of German shelling, one of our sentries, anticipating an attack, thought he saw forms moving in no man's land. Actually, the poor guy had been staring out there so long at the shattered tree trunks that they appeared to be moving, so he reported enemy activity, whereupon an impetuous major, without further investigation, called up our artillery, which sent over a ferocious barrage. More important to us than needlessly costing thousands of dollars, that barrage blasted our own wire so effectively, it took us almost a week to make the necessary repairs. The major responsible for this marvel of destruction was transferred out of the regiment to Italy, where he found himself a cushy job as a provost marshal for the rest of the war. He was a handsome man with a great gift of gab, and after the war, he strutted around the city for several years in uniform and became president of the New York Athletic